Good evening and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me as always is my good friend, Jim Stamm. How you doing, brother?
I am good. I feel like we got lots to catch up on, Gary. Haven't had a chance to talk to you in a few days, so we'll just do it now.
Yeah, we've been all over the place, and we were trying to get our friend Dougie Fresh on, but man, we had some technical difficulties, so it's just going to be Jim and I, which is okay. I think we know each other and like each other enough to hang tight for a little bit. So first, I wasn't expecting to start with this, but we're going to start with a Bryan Reynolds signing, right?
Yes,
2
we are.
years, $6.5 million per. So he gets a little more than he was scheduled to get this year, and a little more potentially all told. I think it's probably going to be a wash for what he would have gotten in arbitration next year anyway.
Pretty close.
What do you think? I mean, I know a lot of people probably don't really understand what's going on here.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's kind of funny. You know, we spend so much time thinking about the baseball side of things. That's not really where I went this time with it initially. Almost immediately, I thought about it from the personal side of things for Bryan Reynolds and his family, you know, and just the fact that this is something that they don't have to worry about. It's done and it's taken care of for a couple of years. There's some good peace of mind there. You don't want to be stuck throughout a season having stuff like this hanging over their head. And yeah, Bryan Reynolds, he seems like a cool customer, but this stuff can weigh on you. And I'm just glad it's done and it's over with for now, and then we can revisit it, you know, and that's really where I was.
I think we hear an awful lot, you know, that this isn't going to change anything, right? He could still get traded. Nothing's really changed. His control is the exact same. He's going to have 2 years of arbitration when this thing expires. So if they wanted to move him, they still could. The point is they don't want to move him. I think the big takeaway here is, and I think we've seen a little bit of a hint of it recently, I think Bob Nutting's kind of getting sick of dealing with the constant hit parade of the rebuild himself. I think he's tired of making moves that don't make sense to anybody, you know, like taking him to arbitration, not having somebody like Hayes wrapped up yet, having no stake in the ground. I think he kind of got sick of hearing that. And it was reflected in his statement when they signed Hayes, and I expect it to be reflected when they announced the Reynolds signing.
It's certainly the thing that certainly seemed to get his attention and maybe get under his skin a little bit was how the Reynolds thing happened and how it unfolded. And because he seems to be pretty hands-off, I think that might have caught him a little bit by surprise, and then didn't like the optics of that. So progress on that front. Sometimes as an owner, I think you do have to step in and say, nope, not acceptable. And
I think there's a few moves that have taken place that have really tarnished this team's reputation over the years that you would have wanted traditionally an owner to step in.
Every once in a while, Gary, you walk a fine line as an owner.
You don't want Daniel Snyder, but you want them to. But you want them to open their mouths when something stupid's happening, and he hasn't done that in the past. He's trusted his leadership group, and
to a fault.
And this time, that was the exact same track they were going down. He trusted his leadership group, and I'm not saying that he doesn't because they signed Reynolds today or anything, but I think there's a limit to it. There's, hey, I get what you're doing, Ben, but I need a win. You know, you got to do something here to show the fans that, like, we are turning a corner, because the team is still not going to be good this year. I have to sell tickets at some point, you know, like, I don't want to sit here and paint it out like, oh, Bob's turned over a new leaf. He's a great guy. But I also will say human nature kind of dictates that this is the way it is. You know, people have their Irish up, and I'm allowed to say that I'm Irish. People have their Irish up a little bit about Bob Nutting, and rightfully so. But when he does something good, I think it's okay to like send that positive message at him. Like, hey, you did something good here. Not letting him forget that there's more to do. Not letting him forget that he has failed us in the past. But when he does provide a win for us, let's take the win. Let's give him positive reinforcement for what he's given us, so that at least he feels like there's a reward for doing it, right? Beyond like just trying. That's
You,
all I'm saying.
yeah, and look, I mean, if you stripped everything down away from this and just put it out there without this specific owner and this specific organization and things attached to it, they're just really good things that have happened. So let's acknowledge that. Let's celebrate that, but at the same time, understand that this is a process and they've got other things that they need to do. But right now, look, these are two really good things that have happened. They kind of corrected a mistake here with the Reynolds situation. It's not going to go to arbitration this year or next. They got Hayes signed to universally what I think is people acknowledging that it was a good contract, except one uh, classy lady in New York. But other than that, hey, I mean, look, this is what we wanted. Is it the bare minimum? Did they have a hiccup along the way? Still, yes, but we got what we wanted, and let's acknowledge that part of it at least.
Yeah, let's at least, I think, step back from what has been, what is, and just for once say the general manager was going to do something that was at least going to be unpalatable to the fan base and potentially damaging to a relationship with the best player on the team. And the owner, for once, stepped in and said, I don't want to do this. Make it not happen. And we know from reporting that as of yesterday, Bryan Reynolds and his team had not been approached.
Yeah.
That's how quickly this came together. I mean, that reporting came from two different sources. That was Dejan and Jason Mackey. He had not been approached as of yesterday. That's how quickly this happened.
Well, then that does tell you something, that there's really only one person that can facilitate something like that quickly. And for once, Bob Nutting seemed to do something proactive, and so I'm happy with where things are. It's still going to be a tough season, but these are some of the foundation pieces and building blocks that we need to see.
Absolutely. Great first step. Great first segment. Let's take a quick break. Come back. We're going to hammer some other really interesting topics. All right, and welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Jim and Gary with you again. And next topic I wanted to talk about, Jim, is really social media. It's probably been a vocal minority, but man, it feels like dog with a bone a little bit. When you
What is this? What is this social media you speak of? Okay, fill me in.
Oh, it's all going to change once Elon finally buys it, but it's just something that I find silly. Okay, one good swing from O'Neal Cruz in AAA, and you get a page or three filled with Kevin Newman bashing as though that's the guy stopping O'Neal Cruz from being up here, and O'Neal Cruz praising, ignoring his overall statistics so far this early in the season. It's just kind of overwhelming. And then once they actually do get up here, like Diego Castillo, well, you got to see him every single game and every single inning. He can't ever come out, right? Because that's how rookies are always handled. They're anointed, right? They're all the Steelers' offensive line.
Baseball, especially in Pittsburgh, we've been known to prospect hug and what's the term I'm looking for? Salivate over, because that's usually the hope that we have
It's
here.
what they give us. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're trained here a little bit to do that. Full disclosure, but then it starts to get carried away. Now, do I say I will say this? I do think that when I see Diego Castillo turn in a 3 for 5 performance, do I think he should start the next day? Yeah, I do. And that's something else we'll probably touch on at some point, either this podcast or another one about these preset lineups and whatnot. I think as a hitter, when you're feeling that good, you just want to be in there the next day. You can't
Right.
get enough at bats when you're swinging the bat well. You just you, when you're hitting well, you're thinking about where you're going to get your next hit. That's really what it feels like.
When you're seeing it like a beach ball, you don't
Yeah,
want to take them out, right? Like
yeah,
it's in hockey when somebody's feeling it, you want them to shoot from every awful angle that they possibly could. You know,
yes.
because there's a good chance it's going in. They're feeling it.
So yeah, I get that aspect of it. Now, when we get to a guy like Cruz, I mean, look, we already know what his potential and the things he can do, in particular at bats, and his exit velocity and what he can do with hitting bad pitches and just the natural ability. But we can cherry pick that stuff all we want. We definitely want to be looking big picture here. And sometimes I think that's hard for fans to do in baseball. Does that make sense? Yeah.
It makes total sense. That's the thing. I can sit here and tell you like, oh, that's wrong thinking or whatever, but it's completely rational, natural thinking. Of course, you want these guys to come up. Of course, you do. There's just things they have to check off up here, too. I mean, when you bring up
Exactly.
like a Diego Castillo, of course, I want his hot bat in the lineup the next day. Of course, I do. But with a rookie, there's certain things you don't want him to see until you're ready for him to see it. Sometimes that's as simple as we don't know if right away we want to see what you look like 2 days in a row in the major leagues. Let's see what you look like with a day of rest in between. Let's make you show me you need it. Then let's see what it looks like when you play 3 games in a row. Now let's see what you look like when you face a lefty and 2 righties. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
There's little things that kind of get checked off the box before you start. Think back to like Colin Moran. Okay,
I,
you can say what you want about Colin Moran, but he's
I was just going to say, I don't know if I want to do that, but okay, we'll do it.
well. Think back to Colin Moran
Yeah.
though. Forever and ever, people were devastated that Clint Hurdle would not play him against left-handed pitching. They just kept railing about it. Why can't you play him against left-handed pitching? Well, all of a sudden it came time that he had to face left-handed pitching because now he was the nailed-on starter. So there he was facing left-handed pitching, and what happened? He couldn't hit left-handed pitching because you could think two things. Either Clint Hurdle didn't allow him to develop into a good left-handed hitting guy, or there's a reason he didn't let him hit against left-handed pitching,
Right.
right?
Sometimes you're protecting the player from themselves, depending on the situation.
Right. Now, bad example because Colin Moran wasn't great. But I mean, like, you will have different things that some of these guys traditionally are good at. Diego Castillo, traditionally, in his upbringing, has been excellent at hitting fastballs. He has been not so great at hitting off speed pitches. So it made sense to not want to have him face Adam Wainwright on opening day in St. Louis, the second time he's ever set foot in a major league stadium.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily like everybody has to do the exact same path.
No, and you know, I think what sometimes happens is, and as we saw, he got thrown in that game, and we talked about how much Wainwright had fun with that,
Sure.
just eating him up. But as the season goes on, if you're still seeing it, if they're still being that inflexible with things, they've got to start testing him. They've got to start finding out what guys can do in different situations. My hope is that that's what happens. If they're doing these inflexible lineups 3 weeks out, where you don't change it regardless, do I love that? No.
Right.
Do I expect it to? Do I expect it to change? Uh, Not change? No. I think as the season goes on, you'll see more flexibility there.
I think you probably will too. And I think his play will dictate that. Like, for instance, when they formulate their next plan for their next set of games, they'll have the history of what Diego Castillo has done in order to base that on. So more playing
Mm-hmm.
time will come. I just think it's a very stepped approach that the Pirates have in particular. It's probably more structured than a lot of teams. I don't like it, but I'm just trying to explain it because I
Yeah,
don't think it's a day-to-day decision. I don't think it's like I intentionally am sitting the guy that went 3 for 5 yesterday. I think it just works out that way. And instead of making a decision that traditionally would be a baseball smart decision, like, yeah, well, that's cute, Donnie. Put that lineup card away. I think I'm going to play the guy that went 3 for 5 yesterday. They go, well, that's what the analytics told us, and they they just do it anyway.
you have to understand. First of all, disclaimer. Yeah, I think both of us we would prefer it to be different and not as rigid. But there are organizations that when they say they are married to a philosophy or they are married to certain analytical type approaches, they're married to it, and that's
Yeah,
just how
Blake's
they're
now
gonna.
getting pulled out in the World Series.
I
Say
mean,
no more.
yeah, the guts to do that, the conviction to do that. So yeah, I don't want to see this forever, but this is the path that they've set, and like it or not, we kind of have to put up with it a little bit. And let's also, we're all guilty of this too, which is we're looking at these lineups every day, and we're treating them like they're playoff game lineups. They're not. It's a 162 game season of a team that still has a lot to figure out. I'm guilty of it too. So I'm not just ripping on anybody that does this. I think we all do this to an extent where we just see, God, Van Meter batting fifth in the lineup makes me want to vomit. It should make you want to vomit, but that's where things are right now.
Let's
So
be blunt too. You wouldn't be any happier to see him seventh. Like there's
it
certain
just
guys that you just don't want to see in the lineup, and that's really the crux of the issue with the lineups. That's really it. You don't want to see it anymore, and I totally get it. All I can really tell you is like this entire season, everything that happens. Like let's say you got to get 40 games of Cole Tucker to make a thumbs up or thumbs down decision on the guy. Let's just say that that's a fair number. Maybe I'm even blowing it out. Maybe it's more like 20. But let's say it's 40 games. Man, when you suffer through seeing him in the lineup 40 times this year and the team finally makes a decision, that's why you went through the pain. Because now they feel good about their decision. You may not feel it's progress to have him in the lineup. I certainly don't. But putting him in the lineup allows them to make the progress they need to make. It allows them to cross him off the list. He is no longer somebody we believe is going to help us. That's it.
yeah, yeah, and the argument some people will make, and I totally get it, will be is it's that we have to see it too much here in Pittsburgh with too many guys. We have to go
Sure.
through that process so many times, and um, is it necessarily a hate of a Cole Tucker? Probably not. It's a hate of the process here. And so, yeah, I mean, I totally get that. I think that wears thin on a lot of fans. It wears thin on us too. Um, but
Everybody wants to see that guy come up and just do it too. Like Bryan Reynolds just came up and just did it. If Bryan Reynolds came up in 2019 and had his 2020, he goes right back down.
and that's
That's
the
the
risk.
difference.
That's the risk you run sometimes, and that happens more often than not. How the Bryan Reynolds thing how it unfolded. Typically, that is not what happens. That
Right.
someone comes out and looks like that because they were kind of forced into that.
Yep. In
And
fact, Kevin Newman came up in 2018, looked awful, awful in September, to the point where they went out and got an alternate to play shortstop for them in 2019. Before Kevin Newman eventually won the job due to injury, and
yep,
then went on an offensive tear for him in 2019. And he's still living on that right now. That offensive outburst, coupled with the defense that he put together in 2020 and 2021, waiting for those two to try to combine, that's what he's here for. I mean, you have to, no general manager in the league would not want to see if that came together for two reasons. Not even because they think he's the future. If it does come together, that's a nice trade piece. He can actually get something for him. That's a former number one pick who is a starter, nailed on Gold Glove candidate with a little bit of a stick. I mean,
yeah,
you have to give that a shot. I'm sorry.
yeah, and it has so every time it seems like we mention Kevin Newman, people have to mention O'Neal Cruz, and I really do think that they're kind of separate uh, entities that don't really affect one another. I think people like to make that connection because they
Right.
think that it's somehow indicative of how one is doing over the other. I just don't see it like that, and I think I'm just going to start typing out O'Neal Cruz on Twitter every day, just O'Neal Cruz period, and I want to see what comes up because it's just wildly entertaining. Is there a more hot button issue right now in Pittsburgh with players than O'Neal Cruz?
No, but I'll tell you what I always think is hilarious. All the people that are putting out the exact date that he can come up when he would get the extra year of control.
Hmm.
It's funny because they think that teams don't understand what they're doing when they manipulate. They're not going to bring him up the day of. They all watched the Chris Bryant stuff. they all
Yeah,
know they all know what to avoid. They're going to bring him up a week or two after that to try to take a little bit more of a dent out of his Rookie of the Year candidacy. And more people will cry about that too, because they also are duly deputized and controlling, being the protectors of the players. We must protect the prospects at all costs. Jim, we are that wall. We will be the protectors of the prospects. We will not have Derek Shelton do his evil to them.
it's funny, and I think this is where we got here eventually. I think this is what we really wanted to go with on this topic. A little bit was this crusading for young players. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's a little it gets a little weird sometimes.
it's really weird.
Yeah, and
You can
and
like him. Like, there's that one dude from New York, literally Bucs fan New York or something. His favorite player is Mitch Keller. He's loved Mitch Keller the whole time.
mhm.
Since I started doing this, 2019, this guy's been all about Mitch Keller, Mitch Keller, Mitch Keller.
I know who you're
Through
talking about.
thick and thin, good, bad, whatever he's done, up, down, Mitch Keller's his favorite player. That's a little different than what I'm talking about. That's a
Yeah,
guy that's just a fan, likes this player, really likes what he saw of him, wants him to
and
do well.
it's sticking with him through thick and thin.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And I got no issue. we're talking about these people that like they have it forecasted out for the next 7 years exactly how this kid's career should progress and where they're going and how much they should make and what's a good situation for them, and you can't put them in that position. They've been doing this their whole lives. That's because
and how they're
baseball
being
players
treated.
never change positions. I mean, Mike Schmidt changed positions. For God's sake, Cal Ripken Jr. changed positions. It happens in baseball. Vladdy Jr. got moved off third because he stunk.
It's countless examples of it. Countless
I,
of of great players. Great
Absolutely.
players.
So I guess what is your overall thought on that? Like, what is going on? Why do people do that?
I don't know what it is. And then as we're sitting here talking, I'm like, is it just a baseball thing? Um, I don't know, man. People sure fell in love with James Washington with the Steelers. Personality wise, it seems to be a little different in baseball. I think the attitude is that somehow baseball players
Well, in
are
baseball,
getting,
you can follow a player for 5 or 6
yeah,
years
it,
before
it,
they've ever even gotten an opportunity. So, like, you're
and then
already like fully vested in them, you know?
right. There's a personal factor to it because just like you talking about James Washington, he was with Oklahoma State. I mean, and then all of a sudden,
Right.
boom, he's a Steeler one day. So there's not that emotional investment.
I mean, the
Um,
Penguins, I guess you get it
Penguins,
a
Penguins,
little bit, but
You get a little bit.
they haven't been a prospect driven team since Crosby came on. So like the last one I can think of is Daniel Sprong, and even now when he's just doing okay in the league
Hmm.
somewhere, you have people going, "See, I told you. Daniel Sprong was the guy. He should have been next to Crosby all along." And it's like, are you not watching Brian Rust? Like, do you think Brian Rust sucks? Did they
Yeah,
screw up? Like,
Russ may be decent. Maybe.
yeah,
But no, so with baseball, it's funny. I think fans get attached. Hey, they can go to the minor league games. They see them up close. It's a more personal thing. I just saw that firsthand, being down in Richmond and seeing the curve play. So there's that aspect to it. I think there's this, whether it's perceived or true, that baseball players are really taken advantage of. So I think people have a little bit of a bleeding heart for that, especially in the
yeah.
minors. And yeah, people take up arms for these guys, and it's really not that simple. You just because you think someone's going to be good down the road doesn't mean that they're good right now, and you certainly don't want to expose them earlier than you have to.
No, but I'll tell you when it becomes a real problem because we already talked about like you can't do the Kevin Newman O'Neill Cruz 1-to-1. It's not what it is. It's just not. It's not the same thing. Kevin Newman can move to second. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
O'Neill Cruz can play the outfield. We don't know. It's if the bats work, they're going to work. Kevin Newman hit that triple to clear the bases the other day, and my Twitter timeline was literally like F word, F word, F word. He's saying Cruz stay down there, and it's no, he hit a triple. Like that's all it was. He's trying to win a baseball game. Like,
Yeah, and that's touching on another thing is like man, if you're rooting for failure of guys, I'll say it again and again. We all can have our opinions. I love to be wrong about guys that I'm critical of, and I'm not saying Newman's one of them. Trust me, because
right.
I still don't think he is. But across any sport, if I'm critical of a guy and he proves me wrong on a daily basis, man, that is great. I will eat crow on that, and good for him, and it's good for the team you're rooting for.
Yeah.
So it's such a weird. People are funny sometimes, Gary. That's
Well,
all. I mean,
I think in light of the Dwayne Haskins situation this week, yeah, just awful tragedy.
sure.
I think it's important to kind of keep in mind that you can criticize them for what they do on the field, but personally, you don't have any business like getting involved in that stuff. And I see a lot of hate speech towards some of these guys that, and the only reason to hate them is literally you want them out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Or you
And
don't want to be wrong.
or you don't want to be wrong. One of those two things, and either one of those, I'm sorry, is not acceptable as far as like just talking crap about a guy. If you want to say that this guy can't hit the broadside of a barn, that's fine. Whatever. That's a
Mm-hmm.
baseball thing. Fine. I know it's hyperbole. I know what it is. I think everybody understands that. But that doesn't mean you got to talk about like hoping he jumps off a bridge or something.
Sure.
I just don't understand that sort of thing. And I
Or
really hate it.
yeah, I mean, and then you just get to actively rooting. I mean, because if you're actively rooting against a player, you're actively rooting against the team that he's on, which is a team that you profess to love. And so,
Right.
people just get carried away with it, and then it gets even into personal things, and that's whenever I'm just like, nah, you know what? We probably need to do a better job of calling that out a little bit on Twitter sometimes. That I don't claim fans like that for this town, for this city.
Right.
I'll never claim that, and sometimes people get way too carried away with it.
It's stuff that I tend to just ignore rather than engage, but maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should take advantage of the louder voice that some of you have given me and use it, you know?
Yeah, sometimes it's exhausting because you see it too much, and then so you get desensitized to it. But I don't know. Every once in a while, it's probably good to make an example out of somebody. That's how kind of the Jaggies got going. So maybe that'll be a factor in the awards next year too.
Hey, man, I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. We come back, we'll do Call Your Shot, and then let's do story time with Jim and Gary, huh?
Oh wow, that sounds very good. Let's do it.
All right. All right, and welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Coming right out of the break, it seems weird to go right back into one, but we're going to play the Call Your Shot right now. So here it is.
Banshee reporting to you from PNG Field at the Curve's home opener. And my question for you tonight be, there appears to be renewed interest in minor league teams since the lockout. Do you believe fans have realized how important minor league teams are to their community, as well as how important they are to keeping the sport alive? Or do you think this is any point in a storm reaction? Or is it all the above? Thanks for taking my question. Go Curve, and as always, let's go Bucs.
All right, Jim, first of all, first thing I got to say is awesome costume, right? I mean,
yes, the commitment. I love the commitment.
She was decked out.
Love it.
I got to say, man, this city is just going to be insane if this team turns it around and really does it. I mean, that's the kind of spirit that exists right now to go to a minor league baseball game in the Pirates affiliate system. And
Yep.
I love it. So that's great. I love the passion. The question, though, is the reason that this one got chosen because, man, that's a tremendous question.
It really was.
The CBA negotiations definitely drove some people to be more interested in minor leagues. And this team in particular drove people to be interested in the minor leagues because that's where all the exciting talent is. And they have been pointing downward for the best part of 3 years, telling us to keep looking. It's down there. That's where it is. It's coming. Keep watching it. Here it comes. Look at that guy. He's coming.
Yeah, certainly don't look here. Look,
Right.
look over here.
Right. I mean, it was, we were getting close to like Jim Turdinich being like, Kai Tom, soon to be replaced by Kanan Smith and Jigba. You know?
Just about. Just about.
But, you know, we sit there and you watch the minors because of that. Do I think people understand the importance of minor leagues to the game? Oh, boy. That's a tough one for me to answer, mostly because I do and kind of always have, and I love minor league baseball. It's a lot of fun. I don't know how you would escape it in Major League Baseball. Everybody has been a minor league player. Everyone knows the lineage of the minor leagues and where you're coming from and who you've played with on the way up. And I think everybody understands the importance of it. But I do think that they have been driven to having a higher place on the pecking order in this market in particular, and probably across the league as people brace themselves for potentially not having Major League Baseball. What do you think, Jim?
You know, my mind goes so many different directions with this. And like you said, first of all, great question. The first thing I would recommend for people to do is if you're a big baseball fan and you've never gone to a minor league game, I would go. I mean, yeah, you know, I think you're only getting part of the picture that baseball creates and paints for you.
It's where it's in its purest form. It's where it's for the love of the game. And
it is, man.
I used to go to West Virginia when we had the Black Bears. And, you know, that's where I first saw Bear Bellamy pitch, you know, and now I'm watching Bear Bellamy pitch in Altoona. And yeah. I've seen him pitch in 3 different levels now. And I'll always have that connection. I saw his debut in West Virginia. So I'll always have that connection with that player. I've watched him from the very beginning stages of being a professional baseball player, working his way up towards the major leagues. He may never make it, but I'm a Bear Bellamy fan because of that, you know?
It's a perfect example of why people should do it. And you get to see the game on a whole different level than what you'd see at PNC Park. And you'll find that it's just as enjoyable in so many ways. There's an intimacy to the game at that level and a closeness to it. And then you see, you just start to appreciate that journey and the grind of those guys, even if you don't know their names. It's not glamorous. And it is truly for the love of the game. And every player that comes to the majors has experienced it. So if there's 2 things I would recommend minor league games, try them out, see what you think of them. I'd be shocked if you don't like it. And go to Cooperstown and see it on that level, but see baseball, read the whole story, see it from the minors through the majors,
right,
through someplace like Cooperstown, New York. And man, if you don't really start to appreciate baseball and what it means, then I guess it's just not for you, and maybe that's fine too. But it's a love story for a lot of people, and you got to read all the chapters, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I guess you've probably been to one more recently than me, right? You were just in Richmond.
So I was.
Why don't we move right into story time then, brother?
Yeah. So real quick, I had a chance to go down and see the Curve play in Richmond, Virginia. And they are the Richmond Flying Squirrels, and that is the AA affiliate of all teams, San Francisco Giants, which doesn't make a lot of sense geographically. But now, full disclosure, I was there because my all-time favorite baseball player in the world is Will Clark, and he's my hero in sports, and he was there doing a meet and greet, and I got to meet him, and that was awesome in and of itself. But then to be able to go down south and see another minor league affiliate and see what it means to that town, that city, That was their 12th straight sellout, Gary.
It's the show there. Yeah.
It is, man. And the ballpark, it's got some age on it, and they probably need a new one. And the city is definitely going through a bit of a it could use some upgrading, the facilities and everything. But man, none of that mattered that night. It was baseball fans. I saw Pirate fans there. I saw Stargell jerseys. I was trading stories with people. Just meeting people that used to live in Newcastle, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And
they're playing the curve, so there's a little bit of a reason for them to be there, right?
Yeah. And I don't know, man. There's just this baseball family, and you get to talk to people and share your experiences and some of your stories that you have had over the years. And it was just a reminder to me is like how cool baseball can be on such a simple level. And I just so enjoyed it. And now we're already talking about making sure we get down to see the curve play. It's such a gem, and not enough people do it, I don't think.
No, it's something I've always really enjoyed doing. In fact, I think it was right after the pandemic really started taking hold. My wife's from the middle of the state, so we were going out towards Altoona anyway. And we knew that the ballpark was closed, but they were doing their practice circle there. So, I'm such a baseball junkie. We drove up to PNG, and I stood outside taking pictures of them playing, even though they were just practicing. I love it. The atmosphere is incredible.
It is.
Everybody that's there is there because they love baseball, not because it's to be seen. It's not the thing to do in town. It's something that the whole community comes together over. I love it.
I saw it firsthand, and I was in baseball heaven that night, man. For me, first of all, it's baseball. Will Clark. I got to see Matt Frazier play. I got to see Nick Gonzalez play, and Peguero, and Tanaj Thomas pitched. And I mean, it was just like baseball overload for me. But you get to see the absolute hard work and all the behind the scenes, the not fancy part of the game. I wish I had a better way to say that.
Yeah.
And just that grind that these guys go through. And then so when they do reach the majors, if they do, you appreciate it so much more. And it gives you a connection to the game that I don't think maybe you get if you're just a fan of the major league team.
Well, the beauty too on a night like you went is everybody there gets to see a borderline Hall of Famer at least, who made it, came through there, thrived, became the thrill, right? Everybody there sees him and just goes, it could be me.
And I found out something very interesting. Will Clark is actually still involved with the Giants on a organizational level, and he's essentially a guy that they send around to fix guys. He's still a fixer.
Yeah.
And so he's like an executive special hitting assistant for the Giants, and he had been there all week working with guys that they wanted specific tutelage with, and I thought that was so cool. And I mean, remember, this is the guy, first major league at bat. Who does he hit He hits a home run. Who is it off of? Nolan Ryan.
Right.
Two dead center field. He's a legend. And so you get to see that kind of an example of a guy like that. And that's what those guys are fighting for. And to even get a taste of something like that. And
I mean, imagine,
it was just awesome, Gary.
Imagine like just a year from now, 50 or 60 people on Twitter will be crying for them to never not have an at bat. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, and that's how we get to the point we do when we get to the Diego Castillos of the world. I guess
it's funny because we just talked about it, and then like basically story time with Jim kind of let us.
Fanboy.
Well, no, but it kind of led us back to why it gets that way. Because
Yeah, you fan out.
when you go and see them play on that level, you have a whole new appreciation. Like you're thinking of these guys like Kevin Newman. You see him at PNC Park. He's not going to walk up to you in the hallway as soon as the game's over. You're not going to run into him in the bathroom. You might at a minor league game. You really might.
The interactions I had there the other night were interesting.
Yeah,
there's a closeness to it.
Yeah, it's just a completely different thing. I mean, you go to any random restaurant in Altoona, you might run into a player. You might run into a table of players. In fact, if you do, knowing what you know, I would suggest that you do something really tangible for them instead of tweeting about wanting them to get a fair shake and pick up the bill for their table.
That's right.
This is the wife and I did when we were out at the spaghetti place. So,
hey, and those guys, they just even acknowledging who they are and the kind of effort and seasons maybe that they're having and just getting recognized. They love that stuff. I mean, you're not bothering those dudes. Trust me.
Right. They're not to that point yet. So
and let me just add one more cool thing that I got a little bit of fever because I saw this is something I didn't expect to see, and I got to see it this close to my face. And let me tell you what, I hope someday we get to see this. Will Clark had his World Series ring on.
Yeah.
And it was, unfortunately, he did not get one as a player, even though he was an amazing postseason player. But he earned one as a member of special assistant, and he had it on, and it was about this close to my face, and maybe someday the Pirates can get one of those, because I'm going to tell you what, it's more beautiful than you could ever imagine up close like that. So
we're going to see Bryce Wilson get one when he's in Atlanta this year. So
that's true.
I guess that leads into my story time, which was the home opener.
Oh, so. Yeah. You have a story too. I want to do a 3-hour podcast, and I'm just going to talk about what happened down there. But you actually got to go. I would have been there with you had this not been the same exact day, but duty called. So 15-year-old Jim had to get down to see Will Clark.
I completely get it.
Tell me about it, dude. It sounded like it was awesome.
Yeah, so I went to the home opener with my kid, did a little meetup, ran into Josh and Jake from Bridge to Bucktober podcast. They were there, their wives. Very nice to meet them. Josh and Alan, so many other people. It's hard to remember everybody that that we met. But good time. Really, really enjoyed it. I got peanut heaven seats on purpose because I wanted to be like real far away, and I like to get a lot of nice pictures that I use on my website. So if I sit up real high, I get a lot of nice views, and that's what I was doing. But watching the crowd come in,
you're a man of the people, Gary.
Well, watching the crowd come in slowly, though, I was getting worried. Actually, I kind of thought it wasn't going to be a good turnout. But my son and I got there so early, we were in there in plenty of time, watching the festivities and everything. Joe Grishecki sang the national anthem, which was really cool. Joe Manganiello threw out the first pitch. Good stuff.
Saw that. My wife made sure to point that out to me on social media, of course. Go on.
Well, hey, you had your man crush, and she gets hers, right?
I got to meet the love of my life, so.
Yeah, so, but all in all, man, it filled out after the security lines kind of cleared up and everything, and it was a pretty packed house. Pirates didn't give them a lot to be loud about, but everybody cheered, and it was a good time, I think, for everybody. It was nice to be back in the ballpark for a proper opening day, man. It's been a long couple years.
Yes, it has.
Everything that we've been through as a country and the sport's been through. It's just really nice to see everybody be able to kind of come together and just appreciate having a baseball game again.
Well,
for that one day, nobody talks about whether they're good or bad. It's just about watching a baseball game.
Yeah, and knowing you, I imagine you took a second to take it all in, and
oh yeah,
and appreciate it and savor it for a few seconds. And I hope everyone does that when they go, because yeah, we take it for granted, but it had been a while, and it sounds like I don't know if it was a sellout, but it sounds like they were close.
I think it was really close. The home opener is that one time of the year where I feel a regular baseball fan that doesn't really experience the minor leagues can experience as close as you're going to get to it, because not the intimacy maybe, but you get the feeling of just being there because you love the game of baseball. You're enjoying the day out. Everybody's doing this together. Nobody tries to leave early. At least it's not like the normal Pittsburgh leave early exodus. It was more a few people trickled out maybe after the 8th or something, but for the most part, it stayed pretty packed. Good time, man. I really enjoyed it. And we lost 2-1, but you don't even care that day, really.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the weather was good. I mean, our buddy Quintana, he actually looked decent from what I heard, maybe. And
Yeah.
did he, in fact, even up close and personal? I assume he looked pretty decent.
He looked sharp to me. Really, he was kind of doing what he wanted. Suzuki's the only guy that touched him,
Mm-hmm.
and just for good measure, he touched the next pitcher too. So
Sure.
it's not like that guy hasn't been on a tear. He's only struck out twice this whole year. So
Right.
actually, he's only swung and missed twice this whole year.
So all in all, it sounds like even though we were in two different parts of the country on the same day, we were both just fully enjoying the game of baseball on completely different levels. But isn't it funny how it all kind of feels the same at the end of the day? You're there because you love baseball.
Absolutely, man. That's what it's all about. In fact, that's what this podcast is all about. At the end of the day, we love baseball, and that's why we talk about it. And I appreciate some of the news that we've had to report in the last two podcasts. The last two we've gotten to talk about something really positive that has come, which is signing of two very important players for this team, and proof that they want to move forward now, start building now. I think that's what we've been waiting for.
This is as hopeful as you can be as a Pirate fan in a long time, and I think if you start thinking about Hayes being here, and look what he's just done here in these first 4 or 5 games.
Yeah.
And then you've put a bridge out now. You've built a bridge for Bryan Reynolds, hopefully, and you've got Cruz coming. I mean, and then just sitting down there and watching Altoona play and seeing that lineup, and I mean, even if you get 1 or 2 guys out of that, 1 or 2. I mean, this is as hopeful as you can be as a Pirate fan in a long time. And, I'm not saying we got to get carried away with it. I think we do a good job of staying even keel about it. But it's okay to acknowledge right now that there could be some better days and some more hopeful days, and hopefully some winning baseball coming for this organization sooner rather than later.
Right. And none of that adds up to I want it now. So some people ain't going to be happy no matter what with that this year. But I'm just saying, if you want to be hopeful, they've certainly tried to give you some signs recently. And I don't think you're going to see it in the record this year. I think our predictions said that. But I do think by the end of the year, I think you're going to feel a lot better about where they're headed than you do right now. I really do. So, yeah, I think that's a good place to end this week, man. It was a good episode.
It was, and we'll try to get Doug back on. He had some technical difficulties, and he's always somebody that's a good guest to have on. But
I feel terrible for him because we even jumped on and tested his equipment yesterday to make sure it all worked, and then today he must have airplanes going over his house or something because it just wasn't happening. So
he's got the AOL.com disk that was acting up on him, so we'll have to get that figured out. But no, dude, this was a fun episode just because I feel like so many times we're slogging through some unpleasant things in baseball,
right,
be it nationally or in Pittsburgh. And it's good. It feels good not to have to do that every time out.
Yeah, you gotta every once in a while not be pulling for positivity. It's just gotta happen.
Right.
So, hey, without further ado, let's go ahead and say "Let's go Bucs" from Jim and Gary, and let's hear a cool little kid say it now.
Let's go Bucs!